What's up, everyone, and welcome back to WunderCAST. As always, I'm your host, Riker Taylor, joined in studio with producer Alex Masterson, and today we have a very special guest, Curt Langford, the president and CEO of the Texas Tech Alumni Association, otherwise known as the Alumni Dude. How you doing today, Curt?
Doing well.
Awesome. Well, it's great to have you in studio. I always like to just start off with allowing the guests to kind of introduce themselves to the audience and tell us how you got here, what you do, what's led you up to this point, and all that fun stuff.
Sure. Yeah. Appreciate you guys having me.
Sure.
Good to meet you, Alex. Curt Langford. I'm a Lubbock boy, Monterey grad, and born and raised around here. My father was a longtime English professor on campus and dean of the graduate school, so kind of grew up very close to Texas Tech University, near and dear to my heart. Never considered going anywhere but.
Okay.
And got 2 degrees from there. I did eventually move away after high school. I think the same year that Mac Davis's song "Lubbock in My Rearview Mirror" that came out my senior year of high school. That was kind of my story. I did have to get away from Lubbock for a while. It was about 2 years that one of those I spent in Los Angeles and then moved to Houston. But you move to places like that, and then you develop a deeper appreciation for your hometown. Got a little homesick, and I did come back eventually. And wisened up, came back and finished a couple of degrees at Tech. And I think it was my final semester at Tech. Had just gotten married and was planning to move to Dallas with my wife to work where I'd done an internship. And got a call from the great Bill Dean, the legendary Bill Dean on campus, running the Ex-Students Association at the time. He called me in and said, "How would you like to work full-time?" I'd been working at the Ex-Students Association my final semester on a part-time basis, writing some stories and magazines for the Texan magazine, the alumni publication, and thought we were going to move away. But he called me in and said, "How would you like to come on full-time?" And of course, in my mind, I have no negotiating skills. I turned around and asked him. I said, "Well, does that include a parking spot on campus?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "I'm all in."
Nice.
So that began what became an 11-year stint with the Ex-Students Association at the time, and this was the advent of the internet. I remember helping Bill and some of the others there get their email accounts set up for the first time. So that kind of gives you an idea. I don't know if that predates you or not, but this is a while back. And the advent of the internet, desktop publishing. I was a big fan of Macintosh. I was a public relations major and a marketing minor.
Okay.
And this was the early years of the Macintosh, so it was very, very big on desktop publishing. So they had brought the Texas Texan magazine in-house. And but they needed someone that understood the software to develop that. So that's what kind of led to my full-time role. And developing our online community with the internet, developing the website, and pretty much everything what we refer to as virtual today kind of had its beginnings there when I first started. And worked in that role. I think it was a special projects director, marketing director. I became advisor of the Student Alumni Board, the student organization that operates out of the Alumni Association, and just took on a lot of different roles. And one of the things we did, Robert, is we launched the official ring tradition.
Okay.
I think it was like in 1998 is when we first started to look, not at starting a new tradition, but restoring the old ring tradition that Texas Tech once had.
Okay.
And we got to looking at that. And one of my charges was to engage students before they graduated. And for the longest time, we had been hosting this, I think we called it the Senior Exit Dinner. And that was the complimentary chicken fried steak dinner that you got from the Ex-Students Association your senior year. And you got your license plate frame, and it was kind of a traditional deal. And that was, very successful. But we took it up a notch by starting to host the ring ceremonies and starting to build a ring tradition for the university. And highly successful. Had parents flying in for the ring event. We were hosting the ring ceremony in our newly expanded alumni center. So it was just kind of a program that hit the sweet spot. It was a very wifeful program and highly successful. I think we had our first ceremony in the spring of '99. Dr. Donald Harrigan was the president at the time, and he participated in that and presented the rings, and it was just a home run. And that led to being hired away by the ring company. I had no idea that was going to happen. They crowbarred me away from there, kind of offered me a 3-year guarantee.
Interesting.
Allowing me to stay in Lubbock. The company was out of Austin, and they had a branch in Dallas. But they allowed me to stay in Lubbock, but they wanted me to work with alumni offices all over the country to replicate the success that we had at Texas Tech. It was a wonderful story from a marketing perspective and from a higher ed perspective with alumni offices getting involved in ring programs. So I thought that was going to be a 3-year gig. It turned into 18 years and ended up hitting every state in the country. Worked with over 200 campuses and just had a ball. And then when Bill Dean decided to retire, I got a call from the search committee, and the search was on for the replacement. Nobody replaces Bill Dean, but I got the call to be the next man up, I suspect. And that was 3 years ago, 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
3 years ago, October 1, 2018 is when I returned to what is now the Alumni Association. And I've been there 3 years. So that's a quick rundown of my history.
So nice. I love that. And I love that you mentioned the part about, moving off and then always finding your way back to Lubbock. That's we've had a few other guests on here that's been a very similar story as well, that everyone just finds their way back home. So.
I wouldn't have, being a Lubbock boy, I would not have appreciated this place until I left.
Sure.
And then it happened again. Even though I never left Lubbock in the job, I'm traveling all over the country, renting cars in the big city, anywhere from Seattle all the way down to Miami, going to D.C. I tell you what, you get in some of these big cities, you appreciate Lubbock traffic real quick.
Yes. I was just in Phoenix last week, and I can relate. In Nashville the week before. So.
That's right. And the people here are just as genuine as you find. But it was neat. I can't tell you how many times flying back after a long trip. And you're landing out there at Lubbock International, and you look at all those crops. It just looks like a huge quilt. Not a whole lot to look at.
Yeah.
People don't move here for the scenery.
Yeah.
But there is something special about home.
Yeah.
And, I tell people, we may not have trees and we may not have hills, but we certainly have more sky. So you embrace who you are and what you are.
For sure. No, I love that. I love that. So being in your position now with the Alumni Association, talk to me a little bit about what y'all. What are y'all's goals as an association and trying to get people to buy into that and what it means to be a Red Raider for life?
Appreciate that question.
Sure.
I think we're misunderstood sometimes, and there's different models out there nationally as alumni associations go, and I think it's important to clarify. First of all, our own history. We date back to 1927. E.W. Ned Camp, in the very first graduating class, essentially formed the Alumni Association back in the days. So our history goes back to our very first graduating class, 1927. And I think that stands on its own merit. A lot of continuity, a lot of longevity, and a lot of tradition. As the university is approaching its 100th centennial year, we're just 2 years behind them. So we're going to be celebrating our 2 years right after the university is celebrating their 100 years.
Okay.
So that's kind of a neat thing. So we have a long history and a long story. And we're governed by a separate external national board of directors. And currently we have 30 of those. There's 30 board members. And we are a separate 501c3 from the university.
Okay.
And that's what's somewhat unusual. Notice I didn't say the word independent. We try not to say the word independent because sometimes it has a negative connotation to it. My predecessor used to say we're independent, but we try not to act like it.
Gotcha.
But there's a lot of value in being an independent organization. In the profession, the schools that we associate with that have a similar structure, we refer to ourselves as self-governing, self-sustaining alumni associations. And that's significant because what it means as a fundraising entity, every dollar that we generate for the university did not cost the university $1 to generate, right? So from an efficiency standpoint, we can make the most impact. And there's a lot of things that we're able to do for the university politically, legislatively, that the university can't do for itself.
Okay.
So there's some advantages being that quote-unquote independent arm of the university. We do operate on campus. We operate in the McKenzie Merckett Alumni Center, a beautiful facility that was expanded upon the original president's home, which just last week, I guess, or as part of homecoming, was declared, the Alumni Association, which operates there, was declared Texas State got a Texas State historical record marker.
Oh, nice.
Which was just installed in front of the facility because of our long history. And so we're in good company with about 22 alumni offices across the country. The big three in Texas, obviously Texas Tech, Texas X's down at UT, and the former Students Association at A&M all qualify as self-governing, self-sustaining.
Okay.
But you also have schools like Georgia Tech, University of North Carolina, University of Virginia. Within our conference, Iowa State, Kansas State, the military academies, Cal Berkeley, Purdue. These are, if you're looking and benchmarking alumni offices, are what I would say represent many of the most robust alumni associations in the country. We're not an auxiliary of the university. A lot of the private institutions, the alumni office is part of the university, or in some cases, they're interdependent.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as being totally independent, that's rare air, and that's something that we're very, very proud of.
Yeah.
We have about 27,000 members. We're membership driven, and we're striving to grow that membership.
Mm-hmm.
Been somewhat of a struggle over the last 2 years, especially as you might imagine what we've gone through, but it's because of our membership that we have stood strong. When I say we've struggled, we've just held steady.
Mm-hmm.
Our revenue is up, actually, and that's something we're very, very proud of. So with about 27,000 members, and we have different membership levels.
Mhm.
For those that have graduated in the last 5 years, that's a $50 membership.
Mm-hmm.
But our century level is kind of the new baseline membership. That's one of the decisions we made when I first came on board, kind of aligning that with the centennial, the $100, 100 years.
Mm-hmm.
That's our baseline membership, but we have levels that go and extend
Mm-hmm.
all the way up to $5,000 a year, so people can kind of find their niche and
Mm-hmm.
whatever they're able to contribute. But then collectively, everybody belongs to the association one way or another and helps to drive our success. And that's about our structure.
Okay.
There's a whole element about what we do with that. And
Sure.
that's about scholarships. Student
Okay.
scholarships are the essence of what we're about. But we exist to help support the academic mission of the university.
Okay.
And that could be in the support. Like just before this, I was having lunch with a good friend over in the admissions office. Raider Road shows. I don't know if you're familiar with the Raider Road shows,
Mhm.
but this is when Texas Tech takes their story to the metroplexes
Mm-hmm.
throughout the state, or the metropolitan areas throughout the state: San Antonio, Houston, Austin, El Paso, DFW, and even down to the Rio Grande Valley. And that's an amazing recruitment tool. But that's one of the things that the Alumni Association helps support to amplify the Texas Tech story beyond the Loop 289 as we know it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you say you're here to help support the academic side of Texas Tech and providing these scholarships. What do you do with the members that, with your members? Like, what is the incentives of being
Services.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
very good. So it's a two-way deal, right? We want to serve the university, but at the same time, we provide programs and services to our alumni. And first and foremost, keeping them engaged, making sure that Texas Tech is a lifetime involvement. It's something that they're plugged into, not just for 4 or 5 or maybe 6 of the best years of their life
Mm-hmm.
when they attended here, but that they're plugged in well after college, whether it be through our alumni chapters. We have about 70 some odd of those across the country, 40 some odd here in Texas. So that's an engagement opportunity, networking, alumni networking, being able to connect, and the camaraderie and being involved with like-minded Red Raiders throughout the country. We work closely with the career networking service, University Career Services, and have just launched this last year our new TexanConnection.com. That's Texan, just like our alumni magazine, TECHSAN. And that's an alumni networking platform that's kind of working more vigorously to connect even more Red Raiders using algorithms to our advantage, and even those in more remote areas. So that goal is to expand our relevance and reach to help tech grads connect with other grads in various areas, not just from a career networking standpoint, somebody, from a hiring network, but also to connect based on special interest, or, within, based on geographical connections or geographical regions, or being able to connect on, career-based things or any common interest whatsoever. And so the goal is just to connect people. And,
Nice.
it's interesting for those that, if you've ever been here and then left, when you're here in Lubbock all the time, Texas Tech's in the news every day. It doesn't seem like that's a big a deal. You get far removed from it. It's more important to be connected. And of course,
Sure.
the alumni magazine, that goes back to 1957, the Texas Texan, and that's one of the staple membership benefits, if you will. That magazine going out quarterly to all of our members, helping to keep them connected, let them read the latest that they're not going to find in their local news.
Nice.
And there are other benefits and other services as well. The pavilion, we opened the pavilion up on game day. For those that come here on the game day, they have access to the game day pavilion, which is a very, very popular gathering place.
Yeah.
And we like to say #OneOfUs. And the other thing, when I first came on board, we had made the decision to expand that pavilion. It was a $6 million expansion effort. And we're getting very close to getting that fully funded through the pledges and commitments of a lot of alumni. And corporate sponsors and that. I call it legalized graffiti.
Okay.
We have at the Alumni Center and at the Pavilion lots and lots and lots of names all over the facility, and I love that because those places are their home away from home. And those names represent a lot of stories, a lot of history, a lot of legacy, and a lot of love for our great university.
I love that. So, I feel like Texas Tech is obviously, me being a Lubbock guy. I've grown up around tech my whole life, right? And it was interesting that you mentioned like some of these, members, they are people that graduated and moved on, and they're in wherever they're at now, and they're not around and inundated with tech stuff all the time. What do you feel like, to that end? I was just kind of curious, like the legacy that tech has. I feel like people that graduated from tech have a sense of pride. Obviously, I mean, they anyone that graduates, right. I mean, anyone that graduates from a university like that, of course, there's going to be some semblance of pride. But tech seems to hit different than others in just a lot of different ways. Can you kind of break that down for me? Why you think that is?
That's an interesting question.
Okay,
it's a cultural question.
Yeah,
and it's interesting for me because again, I get to work with a lot of universities for almost 2 decades, and it was really, you see a lot of similarities, but then you see a lot of uniqueness among various institutions. I would say here, there is something about the West Texas element. There is something about being somewhat remote. I remember Spike Dykes used to say a lot. He said, "Man, this is one of the best kept secrets in Texas, and let's keep it that way." And I always thought that was interesting when he said that. But if this were President Skuvenik, I was talking to him this morning. But if he were sitting in the seat, he would talk about our ethos, and that's an interesting way to put it. There's a work ethic with our history, and if you think about from a higher education perspective, everything that this university has achieved, in spite of all the headwinds, in spite of the obstacles, in spite of the disadvantages, people don't realize this. We're the only institution in the Big 12 founded in the 1900s. We're a young institution. When you overlay that with a lot of the facts of what Tech has achieved, having become an R1 university or a Tier 1 university, as they used to call it, that is rather remarkable, having not gotten one penny from the PUF fund. We are not one of the land grant institutions. And the interesting thing about it, too, and I think we're going to be hearing more and more about this, the 2 other institutions in the state get all this revenue from originally the stock and the cattle above the ground, but then later all the oil beneath the ground, so much of it that resides beneath West Texas, right beneath us. And we have 2 outstanding institutions in this state, but this state could boast as many as 5 AAU institutions if our state legislatures will look at that and realize that we're behind California and New York in that regard. And I think that's one of the things that that's what's new on the horizon for our university. There was a time when people said we'd never have a vet school. I think we've learned to say, never say never. It's a matter of communicating and educating and helping people to understand what's in the best interest of the state of Texas. And that's what Texas Tech has done remarkably for this state, serving what we often call the giant side of Texas. And it's the Texas Tech University system now, with Midwestern State having come on, following Angelo State, what's going on in Amarillo and El Paso and Abilene and Hill Country, and perhaps some other institutions that are looking to join. That's going to help the voting block, because now there's going to be kind of a circle the wagon voting interest on behalf of the Texas Tech University system, and that's significant.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize how big the Tech University system is now, or even how big Tech as a campus is. Like, there for a while, I know we held the distinction of being one of the largest contiguous campuses in America. That was several years back. I'm not sure if we still have that, but yeah, like Tech is very big, and it's bigger than what I think most people give it credit for.
Well, we've always been big land-wise.
Yeah.
But now we're big people-wise
as
well, having achieved that 40,000 enrollment goal.
Right. That's been a goal for a while,
But the system is pushing 60,000 enrollment. And that's remarkable. It's funny, 51 years ago, we didn't have a medical school. There was only one medical school in the state of Texas. And, that school down in Austin didn't think that there needed to be another medical school. So we've already got one. We don't need another one. Well, that's small thinking. Well, our first president You know, he was a big thinker. He taught us to think big. Paul Whitfield Horn. Let our thoughts be big thoughts and broad thoughts. Let us think in worldwide terms. I mean, the famous quote that he delivered at the first convocation. And it was Texas Tech that moved forward and pushed to get the medical school. And you think about what the medical school has begun today, the Health Sciences Center, all the way into El Paso and everything.
Yeah.
This state would be in a world of hurt because when you think about what kind of a geographic region that Texas Tech serves,
Yeah.
not just in our region, but where we put people, our graduates all over. And I think there's 11 medical schools in the state, by the way, now.
Yeah.
But 51 years ago, one is enough? No. So we've just gone through this same argument with the vet school. And I think you're going to see the state get a little bit smarter as it relates to higher education.
Yeah.
And that bodes very, very well for Texas Tech, not just academically, as it relates to the things that we're in great position to be able to serve, not just the state, but the nation in a whole new way. But then athletically, too, with the conference and stuff, Tech is kind of out of the shadow of the Big Two. We're in an opportunity now to stand on our own merit, tell our own story.
Start a Big Three, right?
Yeah, there you go, Big Three.
Yeah, there you go. So the audience for this podcast is entrepreneurs, small businesses, people like that, right? And so I always like to try to tie it back a little bit of just leadership and what we can do to leave the audience with some golden nuggets of wisdom. So one thing that I want to just kind of ask you, and this is unique because I believe you're the first guest I've had on that's in a 501c3 position, being a nonprofit. Talk to me about what that's like to head that up. Because I know like yours is very dynamic with your association with tech, but you're independent, but you're a 501c3. Talk to me what that's like to head up a nonprofit organization.
Well, it's about purpose, right?
Yeah.
It's about purpose. I mean, it's not, it's interesting having come back after having been in a business world. I'm bringing a lot of business applications to my prior place of employment. And while it's not that, our mindset isn't to become profitable, but our goal is to generate revenue. And we do it in a lot of creative ways, whether it's just straight up philanthropy, through membership revenue, sponsorships, affinity partnerships that we have in place. There's a lot of different sources of revenue that we generate. But again, all of it's about purpose, what we're able to do with that. And the primary is to generate student scholarships. We're trying to make it more possible for more people to have that Texas Tech experience and to be able to help supplement the cost of higher education for them and their families. But then also reinvesting in some of these services for our alumni to help them with life after college and doing some of those things. And that's primarily in the area of a networking, and creating more of a mindset of Red Raiders hiring Red Raiders, kind of a thing, that network. But then some of the programs and educational efforts and then the social side of it, celebrating our great alumni. Just last week, homecoming, we've traditionally hosted the Homecoming Awards, our Laurel Cavazos Award, named after the former president, and the Distinguished Service Awards. And for the first time this year, our Brent Ross Fearless Champion Award, which is named after a former employee, a beloved employee at the Alumni Association for many years. And then coming up is Distinguished Alumni Weekend. So we're going to be announcing our Distinguished Alumni. So that's something that's always been the bailiwick of the Alumni Association, to celebrate our heralded alumni, tell those stories. And that's what the Texan has always been about, telling the stories. If you come into my office, I've got a stencil on one of the walls. I had it painted red, and I've got a stencil on it saying every Red Raider has a story. And what I tell my team is we can't tell them fast enough, especially with even more grads. Because when you tell those stories and you talk about our people, our culture, who we are, what we're about, what differentiates us, that builds our pride and that builds our support. And people, people are tribal.
Oh, yes.
Everybody belongs to a tribe.
Yeah.
It's the Texas Tech tribe that we're pushing and building. And so if we have a good year revenue-wise, it's all reinvested into our purpose, into our programs. And it just helps us to get further down the tracks of where we want to go within the mission of the organization.
Yeah, I love that. That's psychographic based marketing right there. So people like this do things like that. That's very much the tribe mentality. And that's
big fan of Seth Godin.
Yes. So
Godin,
so you did read.
I'm very familiar with Seth.
Okay, so you've read his book. This
Purple
is marketing.
Cow,
then.
And this is all marketers are liars. And,
Yes.
Tribes. He has a book called Tribes. And
yeah.
So there's a lot of psychological aspects.
When you were just saying that, I was like, I feel like this guy has read this book. So, yeah.
No, it's good stuff. Seth Godin and, of course, Simon Sinek.
Yes, I would start with why.
In fact, the very first thing I did when I was hired is here I am coming back and inheriting a team, many that I'd worked with before, and then there's some people that have come on since I'd left, so it's kind of a hybrid there. But wanted to do a staff retreat, a corporate retreat, if you will. And they'd never really done anything like that in the spirit of what I was wanting to do. So I wanted to get them offsite, away from the Alumni Center. Called a friend of mine that runs the Hotel Turkey in Turkey, Texas. They're a couple of tech grads. Great place to stay, by the way, if you need to get away for a weekend. And I think they do finally have cell coverage there, so you'll have to turn your phone off. But we did our retreat at Hotel Turkey in the boot shop, which is next door to it. It was great. And I showed them the video, Start With Why, and that was kind of the basis of the conversation of how we can become a more why-ful organization. The what's and the hows are important, but what is it he says? People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it.
That's right.
Right? So
100%.
The why, I kind of equate that to the sweet spot of our operations. So, and when you think about what's great about Simon Sinek is he's not a marketer, he's a biologist. So it's interesting about the decision making that we do in the limbic part of the brain versus the neocortex. So in the limbic part of the brain, that's where the emotional things take place, right?
Yeah.
So things that are within the wheelhouse of an alumni association: nostalgia, belonging, loyalty, commitment, rah-rah spirit, all those things. These are not practical things.
No.
Even with our ring tradition, there is nothing practical about paying whatever these things cost for a ring. Other than what tribe does this associate with me, and who do I belong to, and who's my community. It's very powerful psychological thinking.
Yeah.
But the more we can do within the why, and if we can operate in the why, that's when we get that wheel spinning faster and more balanced, and it makes our message more compelling to where more people are drawn into the why. So that's kind of the message, and that's what we're trying to do from the inside out, from an alumni association perspective.
I love that.
It's a culture change. It's a different approach, and it's not necessarily the business minded. A lot of times short-term thinking, what's the bottom line for right now? But I'm, Simon's latest book, The Infinite Game.
Yeah, read that one too. It's great.
I'm it's like, hey, this is a long-term play, the long dime, not the short nickel.
Yeah. I love that. And see, that's, I love it when the podcasts start getting.
That'll be good. That's good for your business. Yes, I get that.
Yeah, well, no, that's good. I just, I love to just talk about that kind of stuff, because that's outside of the day-to-day, the titles that we wear and the things that we do. Like, at the end of the day, humans are very tribalistic, and we do things. And what you do at this association, or you could replace the word association with tribe, and it would still apply. That's one reason I wanted to have you on, is because, like, you are part of cultivating that tribe and further making people feel like they belong. And I love that you talked about the everyone has a story, and what's yours, and share yours. That's a storytelling, I think, is what by nature every human wants to do, is to be able to tell their stories, and they're just living their lives and doing that. So
you got to stage them, and you can't tell them fast enough. And one of the things I inherited with the new branding when I came in, I love the new logo and all of that with the double T, but this idea of #OneOfUs, that has been really our stamp. That's our way of saying you're part of our tribe. #OneOfUs.
Yeah.
And we had a board member that just sat through his last board meeting last week at homecoming, and he stood up, very profound. It was David Miller, our former mayor.
Yeah.
And I really appreciated what he had to say, because he talked about his appreciation for the One of Us hashtag, because it speaks to diversity. It speaks to the DEI initiatives. It speaks to everything. It's like, look, if you're part of this community, you're one of us, regardless of your background, regardless of your ethnicity, regardless of all of that, you're one of us. But he took it a step further and kind of challenged us going forward as we're coming into this post-COVID culture environment. He said, you're one of us, but it takes all of us. And so that's kind of a thing I think we're going to try to expand it to really build, especially as we're approaching the centennial. It takes all of us. It takes everybody in the tribe to pull together. And Texas Tech needs our people right now more than at any time in its history.
Sure.
But the potential is as high as it's ever been.
Yeah. I love that, man. Woo! I'm getting optimistic about this stuff, right? Yeah, I think it's gonna.
Where's my script? I'm making this up. I'm blowing smoke here.
No, you're good. No, it's. I mean, it's exciting. Again, I grew up here, and I've seen tech evolve. Over the past 25 plus years or whatever it's been. And yeah, it's very different now than what it used to be, and it's fun. It brings a little sense of pride to me, to see what it's done for the community. So
right, one of the things I enjoy the most, one of the fellows, Bobby Waddle, who we awarded with one of the Distinguished Service Awards, and he graduated more than 50 years ago. I think one of the things I enjoy the most is being around some of these old timers
Mm-hmm.
that are telling the story of what Tech
Mm-hmm.
was,
Mm-hmm.
what it was like. And of course, they're so proud of what it's become.
Yeah.
But it's hard for us to appreciate
Mm-hmm.
just how barren this was. Or you think about and you look at some of those old pictures when Tech only had 4 or 5 buildings
Mm-hmm.
and just how remote it was. But
Mhm.
that really is reflective of the vision.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when William Ward Watkin sat down to design Texas Tech, he was the same guy that designed Rice University too, by the way. William Ward Watkin. This is long before the internet. Can you imagine his URL? www.www. That'd been perfect.
Nice, that'd be great.
But, you know, that second building on campus lacked 1/4 of an inch of being 1/4 of a mile from the administration building. Imagine being a student having to walk in the winter winds from class to class. They might have been thinking, who in their right mind would build a building that far away? But take the 30,000 foot view. They had a vision, and you look at our campus today, it's just stellar.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been on a lot of campuses.
Yeah.
And I get that question a lot. Hey, what are some of the and there's some beautiful campuses out there.
Yeah.
But Texas Tech is a stellar
Yeah.
Spanish Renaissance, continuity, consistent, beautiful architecture that's part of our pride. It's
Mhm.
part of our tribal thinking, because these are the sidewalks and the arches that
Mhm.
we've all walked together.
Mm-hmm.
But that's part of our story, is where we've come from,
Mm-hmm.
having our roots. We operate in one of the first 7 buildings on campus, the president's own
Mhm.
home, and I'm proud that it's still there. The university just renovated the dairy barn,
Mm-hmm.
which is thankfully still here.
Mhm.
There was a time when there was a movement to try to bulldoze that old barn, and I'm so glad that didn't happen,
Mm-hmm.
because that's part of our history.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking back when students used to store their milk cow in that barn and sell milk to Lubbock people to help pay their way through school.
Yeah.
I can't fathom that.
Yeah.
That's a different time.
That's
of life. But I enjoyed it so much, giving people tours of campus, especially that haven't been back in 30, 40, or 50 years, and seeing how emotional they get.
Yeah.
It's like, wow.
Yeah.
They're so proud. They're so proud.
That's awesome.
And that's possible because of how many of our alumni invest and give back to the institution to leave it better than they found it.
Sure. I love that, man. That's fantastic. Well, I want to kind of do a little bit of a hard segue as we're starting to wrap up. We're getting close to time here. So we have only one recurring segment on these podcasts, and that is a segment we call Tic-Tac-Toe, or Tip, Tactic, Total Domination.
All right. As
So
long as it's not TikTok.
That's right. Yeah, no, we're not there yet. So I want to know a tip that you have for people that are maybe wanting to start in a leadership position, or they're wanting to make a movement, be a part of a movement. What's a tip that you have to maybe help them start or be a part of or make an impact?
Be authentic.
Okay.
And I don't say that as one that has mastered this by any minute. There's so much you can read on leadership,
Mm-hmm.
and I've read a lot on leadership, and I aspire to be a leader, but I want to be an inspirational leader. But that's a daily charge, and
Sure.
I fail at it often, I know. But I think authenticity is one of the biggest tips. People will know pretty quickly whether you genuinely believe what you believe or not,
Mm-hmm.
and whether you're genuinely behind it. And this kind of goes back to the why. If you're genuinely about the why, I think that makes your story, or whatever it is, your cause, more compelling, and people will want to be a part of it. What does Simon says? He said, you can manipulate on the short term, but you should inspire on the long term.
Mm-hmm.
So inspiration to your word of following.
Mhm.
That's how you create. I think that's one of the stories. He talks about Martin Luther King being
Mhm.
able to draw how many ever thousands or millions of people on the
Mhm.
Washington Mall long before email, so cell phones or social media. But it was authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
I have a dream, and his story message, and it became viral, and it created a following. But it's because he was authentic.
Mm-hmm.
People believed in that, not just, as Simon says, not just for his sake, but for their sake as well,
Mhm.
because he was elevating everybody's boat.
I love that. I love that. The next thing is a tactic. So what's something tangible that you feel like needs to be done? So maybe it's something that you do whenever you're heading up the organization and trying to inspire. What is something that you tangibly do?
Well, interesting. I'd say try to thank often.
Okay.
try to express appreciation every way you can.
Okay.
Right now I've been signing a lot of our receipt letters thanking everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of have a running joke with some of my team members that are waiting for me to cry uncle, rather than having my signature pre-printed on the letter that goes out for tax purposes. I said, no, I'm going to sign every one of them personally. And that's a tactic. It's a
Okay.
strategy, and it does take a little time. And oh
Yeah.
my gosh, I've never written my name so many times in my
Yeah.
life.
How are you sitting here picking up this water bottle so easily?
But, you know, I look at that, and sometimes, you know, every once in a while I'll come across somebody I know personally, and I'll write a note on there. I'll put a little double T, thank you, with a double T in there.
Yeah.
Just something like that. And again, that's a combination of being authentic, I think, and thanking.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's a tactic, but I think
love
that's
that.
very important over time because, you know, to get a gift or a membership from anybody, we're so grateful for that because we as an organization are only as strong as the support of our alumni. So when you get somebody in the fold and somebody who actually belongs to the association, I don't want to take them for granted.
Sure.
And I think expressing appreciation and thank you and doing it in creative ways, I think is so important. So
I love
people-
that. In a world full of copy and paste and fake news and fake this and whatever, being authentic and taking the time to just be real about it.
Yeah.
I think that's fantastic. My last question for you on this segment is for total domination. So what I mean when I say what's something you do that you totally dominate at, I want to know, like, do you have like a certain routine that you follow that helps you, you know, because you're a traveling man, right?
Yeah.
We were talking about this off camera, but with COVID starting to kind of, you know, be less of a thing now, you're able to, at least more manageable, you're able to travel more and go to these places. So what is something that you do to really just help you set up for your day to be able to go out and just win at what you're trying to do?
Wow, that's hard.
Yeah.
Because routine is not my friend. I tell
Okay.
you, I just, I've got a doctor that's on to me for not exercising enough.
Okay.
I try to walk more and everything. But as you know, when you do start traveling, the schedule is rather random.
Sure.
And you don't know, where the wind's going to blow this week versus next week versus next month. And the traveling is starting to pick up. And I love that. While I love being here at home and in the office and doing everything I can here, I enjoy getting in front of our chapters and our people, whether it's a golf tournament or an alumni scholarship dinner or whatever the case may be. I can't meet Red Raiders fast enough. As far as domination, gosh, that's a hard way to look at it. I do play golf as much as I can with these golf events. I don't dominate the game by any means, but I enjoy that. Getting out there, there's been a lot of conversations with folks as I do that. But as far as domination, I guess just dominating the day, whatever the day brings, embracing it. And to a certain extent, that's what I like because no 2 days are the same. And whether I'm signing receipts or participating in a Zoom about a program that we're wanting to roll out, and then the individual walks into the office that didn't have an appointment, but just wanted to meet me or hadn't been to the Alumni Center before and was looking to meet somebody, being able and being accessible right then to sit down. And even though you're busy, recognizing that conversation needs to dominate all the things else. And there's been several cases where people have walked in, and I value that so much because you can't trade for that. And so in those cases, letting their time dominate your interests. And if you do that, I think you'll win in the end because they appreciate that time.
Yeah.
And effort. So
that's an interesting, so I've asked this question pretty much every podcast guest we've had on for the last year plus. And I always get a different answer, and I love to see people's insight, but I like that. Let other people's time dominate your own interests there. Like, I think that goes back to your tip and your tactic though as well, because when you're doing that, you're being authentic. Like, if your mission is to let other people tell their story, share their stories, then by you allowing their time, them sharing their story with you, you're literally living that mission out and being authentic.
Well, especially if they walked into the alumni house on their own initiative.
Yeah.
How awesome is that, right? I was like, welcome home.
Yes.
Tell me about yourself.
Yeah.
There's nothing more important than that.
Yeah.
I don't care. I got in trouble once for missing a Zoom call, and I had to tell them otherwise. I said, well, I had something with a little higher priority come up.
Yeah.
And a lot of times those conversations pay off in creative ways. So
that's fantastic. Well, as we're kind of getting ready to wrap up here, I want to just ask you a couple of things about like what the Alumni Association's got going on.
Yeah.
I would like, this is my chance to, I'm rolling out the red carpet for you. So you have the chance to plug yourself and the association and what you all have got going on. Take a minute or two.
Sure. Well, we got the, pavilion will be opening up 3 hours before game time. So since it's an 11 a.m. kickoff, we'll be opening at 8.
Okay.
The 1923 Society has been formally launched, and we have a lot of people starting to up their membership to the $1,000 level
Okay.
or above to be part of the 1923 Society. which is interesting because we just started doing the math. You look at $1,000 divided by 52 weeks. I couldn't believe the number. It's $19.23 a week.
Mm-hmm.
The same year the university's founding. I was like, are you kidding me? Not 1922 or 1924, but 1923. So that's the impetus for the 1923 Society, or even for others that aren't in a position to give that much, they can give 100, but divided by 52 weeks, that's $1, 1.923 a week. So less than a cup of coffee a week. They can belong to the Alumni Association as a member. So that's some of our marketing going forward. We've just launched our Carol of Lights campaign.
Oh yeah, that's always great.
It's a cool thing because, you think about there's about 25,000 lights at Carol of Lights, which is roughly the same amount of members that we have.
Oh, okay.
So I like the idea that the light bulbs represent our sustaining membership, right? When you put the Christmas lights on, you don't like those bad bulbs or the bulbs that are broken. You have to replace them.
Right.
But those bulbs that are burning every year, that's like a sustaining member of the association. So my suggestion to our marketing team was to get lit for tech, but they didn't like that. They didn't let me do that. But Brighten Our Future is part of the Carol of Lights campaign. So a lot of our people are going to be seeing direct mail and social media on that campaign. And then the Distinguished Alumni Dinner is coming up November 12th, the Friday night before the Iowa State game. We'll be celebrating our DAs, and that have been announced this year. And for the first time, our Raider on the Rise Award, which is essentially a DA for 45 years and younger. I won't go into the detail as to who's receiving the awards, but you can go to our website, or if you receive the text, you'll be seeing that info, or in the local media. And then, there's just programs going on all of the time. The big one, the ring ceremony, will be the Monday night prior to Carol of Lights. And for the first time, we did over 1,000 ring orders this fall. So this is going to be our largest ring ceremony ever. We've had to move our ring ceremony to the United Spirit Arena.
Heck yeah.
I was telling the president this morning, he's grateful because we're able to do it in one ceremony now. Before we'd been doing it in the Alumni Center, and rather than going Monday through Friday night to get them all through, now we're going to go to the arena.
Nice.
And do it all at once. So again, that's about a tribe.
Yeah.
That's a tribal thing, and people are responding well to that, celebrating Texas Tech tradition and the legacies. Whether it's a first generation graduate or somebody that's a third or a fourth generation graduate, they're all one of us.
I love that. Well, Curt, thank you so much for your time. If you
enjoyed,
enjoyed, absolutely. Yeah. We hope that you enjoyed this episode. Be sure to check out some of the other WunderCAST episodes as well. Be sure to check out our Brand Love and RIP episodes, and we'll catch you in the next one.
I should mention we have an app. Download the app, Texas Tech Alumni Association.
There you go.
A lot of ways to stay connected there.
Android and iPhone. Awesome. All the stores. Download the app. Peace.